Hello everyone, it's again March the 5th, the morning of March the 5th, 2023. I wanted to do a second video today. I just wanted to give you a footnote, something I forgot in my previous video about prescription drugs and the addictions there. And it's again about something that happened to me on a lived experience. This is again coming back to what I said in the previous video about my first husband, the police officer, finding the box of prescription drugs in the trunk of his mother's car. And of course, after that, I was very careful going with her or driving with her because I never knew she was on these prescription drugs. Well, this one night, it was late in the evening, and she decided that she didn't want me to walk home, so she was going to drive me home. And I wasn't aware of the fact that she'd probably taken some prescription drugs. So we got partway through the drive, and all of a sudden I looked and I said, well, that's weird. In the dark, of course, things are different, but I looked and I said, well, why in the world are we seeing things like it didn't look right? And then I realized she was driving the wrong way up a one-way street. And then I looked at her and her eyes were kind of going dripping and drooping and like she was going to fall asleep at the wheel. And I said, oh no, this is not good. But fortunately, she managed to get through. And I said, do you realize you're going the wrong way up a one-way street? She said, yeah, that's okay. I'll get home. I think the car must have drove her home by itself, literally is how she eventually got home. But it also makes a point for the driverless cars that we're experimenting with today. Maybe it'd be more reassuring to be in one of those at this point in time and make sure you can get from point A to point B. So I just want to brief you in on that this is what happens with prescription drugs as well. That they can make you sleepy even at the wheel, and things can happen. So what I want to really talk about in this video is about mental health. And this again, thankfully for Julie mentioning her friend who's suffering from mental health and all the problems with the addiction with the mental health. Now, it's not fair that the people that have mental health issues that are not even addicted to these to the street drugs are caught up in the shelters where all this drug dealing is going on, and literally they're being forced into it in a sense because, oh, this will make you feel better, and the dealer will come up and then, well, don't worry about it, you don't have to pay for it this time, so this is one of the ways that they get them hooked onto the drugs, which is not fair to them. And of course, if they've got mental health issues and they've got schizophrenia and they're on drugs for that, then of course they're going to get violent, and then we're going to have problems. So they shouldn't be in these shelters. They're just one of the different people that shouldn't be in, like the students that can't get housing, so they have to go to a shelter, or people who have been forced out of their homes. They have a job, but they can't afford a roof over their heads. These are the people here who really need the affordable housing, like right away. They need to be taken out of this environment as soon as possible. Get them housing, get them set up so that when it comes down to the street drugs and the dealing and whatever's going on the streets, we can deal with it as one big problem, because it's only adding to the problem by having all these other people coming in and getting them addicted to the drugs in the first place. And when you have mental health issues, it's very easy to persuade someone to take a drug because they can't deal with things. So, and then you have the ones that come in that went through detox, got off the drugs. Now they're being caught up in it again. Why put them back in the place where they've got drugs right in front of them? What do? That's really not a good thing, is to put drugs in front of them. It's like with the alcohol situation that we had before, and people were more on alcohol in those days to handle what they couldn't handle. Now it's all the drugs that are coming out. So it's really a horrible situation to be in, but I think there's ways that we could do it. Now, I could see with the mental health patients. Now, what people don't realize is that back in the 60s and 70s, there was a big squawk over how inhumane that the mental institutions were like Brockville and Pentanguinish and all those different places, that we locked all these people away. So we released them all from these institutions, and thinking we were being humane. And in fact, why are we being inhumane by putting these people back in danger? When one way solution is like, as our city councilor here says, we should be spreading this all over the city. It shouldn't be in one place like we have it here in Lower Town. Well, I could see, say, a couple of small apartment buildings, putting mental health patients in there. But what we did was, when we released them from the mental institutions, we did not have any support systems in place for them. Oh, that was forgotten about. Okay, we're being inhumane. We'll just put them out the door. They're free to come and go and do as they please. But if you got two small apartment buildings and you had a team of mental health professionals, social workers, those who can teach them from day-to-day living, or giving them living skills, they could live, and they could live very comfortably and have this support team working between the two buildings. And to make it even more humane, we have a common room put in so they can all gather there for meetings and stuff like that. They could have a kitchen. Let's say it's, for example, it's Thanksgiving. Well, there's no reason why we couldn't have support staff and some volunteers go in, help make them a nice turkey dinner, involve them into helping them maybe cut up carrots or helping in the meal or setting the table for everyone. So it's like a community within those two buildings. They could do it in one of the buildings, have both buildings come over together, or they could do it separately. And they could come down and have them decorate for Halloween or Christmas. They could come and make that like their home. Then it would be far more humane. That's one of the things that I would strongly suggest. I know it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be probably a lot less expensive than what we're doing right now, because it's really costing the taxpayers a lot of money. So I have a lot of different things that I'd like to say about things and how we could work together on doing things. But we could come up with a far better humane system than one we've got now, because it is so totally inhumane. And that was something that was also described to me by another mental health worker that told me how inhumane it was in the Shepherds. And the way we're going downhill right now, we're making the situation far worse. We need to come up with plausible suggestions and contributions to making things more comfortable for people to live. And even I can see it in a community where they're away from everything, a normal community. I don't think the community would be complaining about them being there if they have the proper support systems put in place for these people to handle their day-to-day living. And even when it came to the police, they could even have one of our community officers come in with the mental health workers, trying to explain the basics of what to do when you have to interact with the police officer to try and keep things from being calm, rather than having people barge in, when the police barge in and suddenly somebody goes flying over a balcony because they're so terrified. There are humane ways that we can do things much better than what we're doing now. So that's what I wanted to speak to you on as well a bit today, on the mental health issues. And thank you again for listening, and we'll be back, and I'll be back to talk to you again on something more when it comes up and what I feel needs to be talked about. And thank you, and have a good day. Bye-bye. Take care.